well, over the course of the episode, we've seen Jukebox practicing with her group mates. The one girl she seems like a jerk, really. But for the most part has it together, is getting down the damn steps. The other girl, Aisha, is a little bit uncoordinated. It's a bit unclear. She's supposed to be like the girl next door, right? There's like 3 different personas within the group. And we see like she's kind of missing steps, messing up a little bit, but obviously it has to be that they saw something in her that enabled her to beat out these other girls for this position. And going back to when they auditioned, she was nervous along with Jukebox, but was nice enough to offer Jukebox a Tic Tac after Jukebox had been in the bathroom throwing up from her nervousness. And they kind of clicked then, and we see like a little friendship forming between them now. I wasn't sure if she was like digging Jukebox, like how Nicole dug Jukebox, but at least thus far, Jukebox doesn't see her that way. She just thinks that she's just a friend, which is fine, fair enough. But with that, we see that she's able to have like a little bit of a conversation with Jukebox. She gets Jukebox to open up to a degree about Nicole, though she kind of cuts the conversation short and doesn't really give it the full story. It is nice, though, to see that when practice is over, Marvin is there waiting for Jukebox, and he sees her with Aisha. When she gets into the car, at first he kind of plays it off as though he wasn't looking or paying attention or whatever it is, but ultimately kind of jokes around with Jukebox about it, as some parents might when they realize that like their kid is interested in someone or dating someone. So as RAQ did during the first season with Davina, and then asking questions about her, that she was cute and she liked her and this kind of stuff, and joking around with him about her. We see Marvin doing that now, and it's special for Marvin because if you think back to Jukebox during the first season where, he basically Jukebox couldn't do anything right in his eyes. He was unsupportive of her singing. He was upset about the possibility of her being a lesbian or being interested in girls. We saw the way, and then part of it might be given the way in which, Jukebox's mom rejected her last season and the whole stuff with the church and all this kind of business, that could have contributed as well, to him turning over a new leaf with Jukebox, him accepting her for who she is, and explaining to Jukebox that, she doesn't have to hide anything from him. He jokes around with her about this girl and compliments her on Aisha being pretty and, asks if, she doesn't need a ride and refers to Aisha as being her girl and all this kind of stuff. Really all intended to let Jukebox know that, he's come to terms with this. That might not be the right phrase. He's okay with this. And she doesn't have to hide that part of herself from him. He accepts her as she is. And it's really like a nice turnaround for the character to see his development in the many ways in which he's changed and developed. Putting aside anyone's personal feelings about homosexuality or whatever, but specifically for Marvin, the amount of growth that you've seen him undergo from the first really into now the 3rd season. And part of it is probably a result of the experiences that he's had during that time, and not excusing his actions, but that whole interaction towards the end of the first season with Jukebox, with him becoming violent with her, and ultimately realizing just how badly he messed things up. I think it opened his eyes to the real need for him to assess himself, and that anger management class really did him a world of good. So it's been cool to see, or rather it's nice to see him and Jukebox get to this better place. Kanan is justified really in being upset about this whole situation with the gun being in his bag, because he knows it's not his. He knows he didn't put it there, right? And so here you have it where RAQ is at home. the social worker shows up to do like a home visit, and Kanan isn't there. She doesn't know where he is. And keep in mind that this is the early 90s, so it's not like every kid has a cell phone or anything like that where she could just easily call him. You know, she's there. She doesn't really know where he is. And this lady, like, waits around for a bit, but Kanan isn't there for the home visit. And as the woman explains right before leaving, her and RAQ have the same job, and it goes back to something that Symphony mentioned in the earlier seasons, this thing of keeping Kanan safe and keeping him on the straight and narrow. And as we've seen from RAQ, she's been failing in that regard, right? She mentioned it herself, where in like the first season, when Kanan first came back home in the second season, in the first episode, that the whole thing of him being sent to kill Howard and how scared he was, and, you know, him having nightmares and all this kind of stuff, and how it messed with his head and everything, that it made him feel unsafe, you know? And not just that it made him feel unsafe, but it's kind of this push and pull with RAQ of initially not wanting Kanan in the game, but still exposing him to it, having him in the midst of it. So being kind of indecisive and unclear about what, if any, role he should be playing in their organization, which really at this point should be nothing, right? She should have made a stronger push for him to go to school and not be involved in this stuff. Even in the second season, when he was indicating that it wasn't for him, she should have left it at that and, you know, confirmed, like, yeah, this ain't the life for you, right? Because we see, like, he's still messing up here. And so, but we see here from the home visit that RAQ, like, just really, things have gotten in the relationship to the point where it's like, she can't control him anymore. You know, he's like doing his own thing. He's coming and going like a grown man. And it's like she doesn't have control over him, right? She has control over, or at least tried to exert control over things in the street. We see how that shook out. And she's tried to control him at home, but we see how that's shaken out, right? And a lot of it comes from, at least her situation with Kanan, comes from poor decisions that she made on her part and being inconsistent in enforcing the rules, right? Where it's just indicative of the problems to come. You know, if you think back to, I think it was the first episode when she met up with Symphony, you know, and Kanan was there, but her and Symphony had like a conversation on their own about Kanan. His thing of Kanan having a lot of potential, but needing to remain on the straight and narrow, you know, needing her to push him to remain on the straight and narrow, and her kind of waffling, going back and forth and trying to manipulate him by, if you think of it this season, like she's been giving him money through Famous, trying to buy him this car and whatnot, and even in buying him the car, Kanan does not have a license. You know, this willingness to bend the rules to kind of bribe him in a sense, or to manipulate him into remaining by her side, or, you know, it just points to like her indecisiveness, her being very inconsistent in how she chooses to parent Kanan, and that resulting in his sense of entitlement, this thing of him not listening to her, you know, especially as he's getting older now, he's not falling for the same stuff that he used to fall for as a kid, right? And it just seems like problems are on the horizon. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, go ahead and click the